Shalom, friends. Welcome to the Shiur in Tanya, the Sefer Shel Beinonim, also known as the Likutei Amarim, written by Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the first Rebbe of Chabad, 18th century. I'm Eliyahu Shir, coming to you from Chesed Ve'emet, my website, www.lovingkindness.co. A quick reminder, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do click on the subscribe button immediately, and also to the bell button to be notified of future shiurim. So we are learning the Tanya. We're on chapter 32, an amazing chapter in the Tanya, chapter Leiv, or perhaps if anybody wants to call it, chapter love, because indeed the word love and the word Leiv are very much related. Leiv referring to the heart, love, of course, also referring to the heart. It's interesting to note that if one takes the letter Lamed and positions it as it is seen ordinary, and then afterwards takes it and inverts it into a horizontal inversion, a rotation exactly opposite, and puts the two Lamed in next to each other, you can almost form the picture of a heart from these two letters as well. The Lamed is a very special letter, and as we see, it relates to the heart. And chapter 32 is dealing with the concept of love, of loving a fellow Jew. How does one go about it? What exactly is this mitzvah? And in fact, the Alter Rebbe is telling us perhaps this is the most crucial chapter in a certain respect, even though, as we said last week, we mentioned that chapter 32 was an additional chapter that was added into the Tanya at a later stage. And if one looks at the chapters as we're going in order, one will see that chapter 31 it comes before chapter 33. In fact, 33 follows chapter 31, and 32 seems to come into the middle, seemingly having little to do with both of these chapters. But in reality, if we examine it a little clearer, we see that there is a connection. And the connection that we see is based on the idea that we are focusing on the joy of the soul as opposed to the sadness of the body. In chapter 31, we dealt with the concept of a person feeling depressed, and how does he get out of this depression? Well, one of the reasons of the depression is because he relates to himself as a physical person, and then he realizes he's not really as wonderful as he assumes himself to be on a physical level. And as a result of that, he brings himself to a state of depression and sadness and dullness of the heart. He doesn't know how to get out of it. Well, the Alter Rebbe said to us, the way to get out of it is to start to see the greatness of the godly soul. Once a person focuses on the godly soul, he realizes who he really is. And therefore, he shouldn't be upset when he sees that physically he might not be as great as he imagines. He needs to focus on the godly side of himself, and that will bring him out of that state of depression. Chapter 32 takes us one step further and says to us, if we're going to internalize the message of the godly soul, of the greatness of our spirituality, connecting to God, and the idea that the physical is not so great, then we need to take that into all aspects of Torah and mitzvahs. And perhaps the most central mitzvah that we can relate to, which is really a guiding force for all the mitzvahs, is this mitzvah of V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, loving one's fellow as oneself. And the Alter Rebbe says the key to success in this mitzvah is once again focusing on the spiritual side. When we look at others, if we judge them by their physical, and that can mean anything, it can mean anything from the side of what they look like physically, to whether or not they are wealthy, to whether or not they are honorable or have honor or power or greatness or whatever it is. As soon as we judge people based upon these physical externalities, we're going to find that we're very different. And as a result of that, unfortunately, we're going to come to despise certain individuals based upon our physical externality. Whereas if we judge each other rather based on that spiritual side, we are more likely to connect with each other. What is the judgment spiritually? The judgment spiritually is to see that we are all connected as one. We are all connected to God. We come from that same root, and therefore there should be nothing that divides us. Therefore, Hillel says in the Gemara, of course, what is hateful to yourself, do not do to others, which is really a corollary of the idea of love your fellow as you love yourself. And when this particular convert came to Hillel on occasion. He'd gone to Shammai first. Hillel and Shammai were the two leaders of the Jewish people at the time. We know that Hillel was more focused on the side of mercy, of chesed, and Shammai was more focused on the side of din, of judgment. And when the convert came to Shammai and asked to be converted, I don't know why he went to him first. He should have gone straight to Hillel. But anyway, he went to Shammai first, and we know the story. Shammai took this beam, and he was ready to really knock him over the head with this beam. He told him, he said he wants to convert on condition that Shammai would teach him the entire Torah while he stood on one foot. Or please teach me the Torah while on one foot. So Shammai takes this beam. He's about to strike him. Get out of here, he tells him. You expect me to convert you, number one, and number two, on condition that you do, I'm going to teach you the entire Torah on one foot. You must be crazy. That's not how Torah works. He rushes off to Hillel. He says the same thing to Hillel, and Hillel says to him this statement of loving one's fellow Jew as being the most crucial, central mitzvah of all of Torah. And immediately afterwards, Hillel follows up on what he's saying. And he says at the end, and this is where we left off last time, we said that he said, Zehu kol ha-Torah kula. This is the entire Torah in its entirety. If we take the full Torah, anybody who wants to know what the Torah is, it has to do with the fact of loving one's fellow man as one loves oneself. The itach pirusha, and Hillel then said, the rest is mere commentary. I'm adding the additional word in English, mere, but that's really all he's saying. The rest is just the commentary. Everything that we're learning about in the Torah is a commentary on the mitzvah of loving one's fellow man. Why? Because the most essential thing that we can ever come to do in this world is to care for another, and it is perhaps the hardest thing that we can come to do. Why is it so hard? Because we are so different. We look different. We have different incomes. We have different levels of honor and power in this world. And as a result, we judge ourselves or judge other people on this basis. This is a danger. This is not what the Torah is about. Those people that want to internalize the real Torah need to focus on this as being a central mitzvah. And in fact, the moment they focus on the idea of this being a central mitzvah, they will be able to perform all the mitzvahs of the Torah as they should, because all mitzvahs are dependent upon this mitzvah. All mitzvahs ultimately find their way home to this particular mitzvah. Ki Yesod v'Shoresh Kol HaTorah. And now the Alter Rebbe explains to us that the root of all of the Torah is hulahagbiya, is to lift up, ulahalot hanefesh, and to bring the soul, the lowest level of the soul in this particular instance, above al haguf, over the body, Male Maila ad ikara v'shorsha dechol almin, higher and higher until its essential point and its root of all worlds, which means to say our duty is to take the soul part of ourselves and bring it above the body. Do not focus on the body, rather take the soul power, the essence of who we really are, and what we need to do with that is to bring it above ourselves, above the idea of physicality. Now, what do we do with that? Of course, that is the theme of all the mitzvahs. When we engage in mitzvahs, we need to do exactly the same thing. And that is why everything else is just a commentary. And that is why this is the most essential mitzvah. Because once we internalize the idea of the soul power, we are then going to invest the soul power into all our mitzvahs, and that will become the focus. And as a result, we'll perform the mitzvahs as we should, based on the power of the soul, the greatness of the soul against the body. And that is how we will win this battle. Of course, that is the battle we spoke about right from the beginning, when the Tanya opened up and told us about the concept of the animalistic soul and the godly soul, and this constant war that is present in the nature of the Beinoni, the middleman, who finds himself constantly waging war from one soul to the other. And therefore he falls, and then he rises, and he feels depressed, and then he feels happy. What's really going on? The falling is relating to the physical. The rising is relating to the spiritual. V'gam, and also, lamshich or ein sof, he's going to draw upon himself, or he'll draw upon whoever he's going to do in 1 second. He's going to draw or the light of the infinite Ein Sof, the infinite one, Baruch Hu, blessed is he, the Knesset Israel, in the community of the Jewish people. Knesset Israel is simply a term which describes the entire Jewish nation. All of us together are called Knesset Israel. Last week we discussed this theme. We said that Knesset Israel, the whole Jewish people, is really like one body as a physical entity, but we exist spiritually. And therefore, if we're going to operate as one body, we need to take care of each other. Because if we're not going to, it is simply like one hand striking the other hand, or a person becoming angry with the way his lungs are currently working, or his kidneys are working, becomes very angry, he's going to rip it out of his system. Well, of course, we don't behave in that way. So too, when it comes to another Jew, we recognize that they too are part of the same body, and we need to take care of them so that they in turn will take care of us. We are one. We are Knesset Yisrael, and our duty is to draw down the power, the light of the Ein Sof over us all, over the Knesset Yisrael, which is, of course, a spiritual concept, and it's brought down into this physical world. Kemoshe Katuv Lekaman, as is written later on, we're going to see in a later chapter in Tanya, we're going to discuss more about the Knesset Yisrael. Dahainu, which means Bimokol Nishmos Kol Yisrael, in the very source of the souls of the Jewish people, that everything becomes one. We become one with the one specifically. When we have this attitude in our life, then we will connect all of ourselves as the Jewish people to the absolute one of the world, to God. People say, how can I connect to God? Oh, let me go and meditate for the next 20 hours and just think about this great God who exists. And then afterwards, presumably, of course, if the person can do it, he has a great amount of wealth in his bank account because he doesn't have to work. So he just spends his day meditating all day, and he thinks he's a very godly person, and he's connecting with God. And the Tanya says, you want to connect with God. The way to connect with God is connecting with Knesset Israel. As soon as we connect with the Jewish people who are in essence a part, they are the essential essence of who God really is in this world. As God is manifesting himself in a spiritual aspect, in physical bodies, this is the aspect of godliness coming into the world. Now what we need to do is to care for each other. And as we do so, we are caring in turn for the Shekhinah in this world, for God in this world, and we ourselves become united with this one God. Well, one God, of course, is united with the entire world. But on our side, we need to do something in order to bring that connection from below to above. Velo, kesheyesh pirut chas v'shalom b'neshamot. And this is not like when there would be a separation, God forbid, with the souls. When one person says, oh, you fellow Jew, you're struggling. Well, that's your problem. You need to go out and get a job, or you need to attend to your own needs. Please, leave me alone. When there is separation amongst the souls, there's a separation amongst Knesset Israel, then I'm afraid to say, the Alter Rebbe is telling us there is also a separation with Hashem, so to speak. Of course, Hashem is completely united with us at all times. But from our perspective, we are causing that there's going to be a peirud, a separation between ourselves and God. Because the Holy One, blessed be He, does not dwell in a blemished place. When there is something wrong somewhere, God cannot dwell there. God dwells in places of holiness. Of course, God is present everywhere. God is present in the bathroom. God is present everywhere. It doesn't matter what there is. The world would not exist. No place or time could exist unless God were to be there at that point in time. However, the manifestation of God, that does not exist in a place that has been flawed and blemished. And blemished, of course, is through separation. When we cannot see that God is there, when we cannot acknowledge that God is there because we think that we are there, then at that point in time, the place is blemished and the manifestation of God cannot take place. As it says in Tefillas Amidah Hoda'ah, as it says in the Shemona Esrei prayer, when we daven, many people don't realize this. They're davening this prayer 3 times a day. They're not paying attention to the words that they're saying. They're so involved in the actual pronunciation of the words. Just get through the davening. Let's say these 500 odd words of the Shemona Esrei as fast as possible, and we have fulfilled our obligation no matter what the words say, mean, or are all about. And listen to the words that we actually say. Let's pay attention to it. Barchenu avinu kulanu ke'echad. Bless us, our Father, together as one, be'or panecha, in the light of your face, in the light of your countenance. We say to God, bless us, our Father, together as one. Can you believe it? Every single day we're davening this prayer, and as soon as we finish praying and somebody's in need of tzedakah, for example, he walks into the shul, and as he walks in, somebody shouts out loudly. I've personally seen this, unfortunately, in various shuls. I've seen a gabbai will stand up and he'll say, get out of this shul. This is not the place for beggars. A terrible thing to do. Well, this is exactly the opposite of what we're talking about in the prayer. So the person will daven this prayer with all sorts of kavanot, and the poor man will walk in and say, please help me. I don't have food, I don't have clothing, I don't have a place to stay, I don't have money to pay for medical bills, whatever it is that the person needs. And the person will shout out and you'll say to him, we don't need beggars here. Oh, well, that's very interesting, because the Alter Rebbe says, Barcheinu avinu kulanu ke'echad. We're davening to Hashem 3 times a day. Bless us, our Father. When does the blessing come? When we are together as one. Then there is the light of God's face. And this is described in another place, Barichot. We'll see later on when we get there. And that's written in the Gemara. A person, the Gemara says like this: a person who sees that his friend has sins, what should he do? He notices that his fellow is committing a sin. What is the right approach to take? Mitzvah lesanoso. It is a mitzvah to hate him, says the Gemara. You see, your fellow Jew is committing an aveira. The Gemara says it is a mitzvah to hate him. V'gam loimar, and also to say lerabo, to his teacher, sheyisnaehu, that he too should hate this person. Oh, Rabbi, I want to tell you something, he says. You see this fellow over here, he is committing certain sins, and I say to you, Rabbi, I hate him, and you should hate him too. Okay, fair enough. That's what the Gemara says. It must mean that. Hayinu, this means that means a friend who is his comrade he is his fellow in Torah and Mitzvos. That means to say we're talking about a person who is already in the same category and the same level as we ourselves are on, which means to say, if I am Torah observant, I keep Shabbos and I keep the laws of Kashrut and I keep the laws of Nida, and I have this fellow friend who does the same thing, and we're basically on the same level, and I catch him out doing something, there's a process to take, of course. We have to criticize him, we have to tell him, give him a bit of a reprimand, say, hold on, you can't do that. But we see that the fellow is still a bit antagonistic about what we're saying. He doesn't want to really go through with it all. He's happy doing what he's doing. So the Gemara says in that instance there's a mitzvah to hate him. Very interesting. Bring up the idea of hating somebody in chapter 32, dealing with love. Now he has to also have fulfilled the mitzvah of you shall surely rebuke your fellow, amitecha. You should rebuke him. When one sees another doing wrong, there is a mitzvah to rebuke him. A person sees that this particular person he behaves in a manner that is not correct. We should walk up to him and say to him, why did you do that? Do you know that it is forbidden? The person might say, I didn't really know that, or I made a mistake, or thanks for reminding me. Very pleasure, that is the correct thing to do. I wish to put you on the right track. So if a person has indeed done that, but the other fellow says that he is not prepared to accept it, and the person says again, you're doing wrong, he fulfills this mitzvah. You shall rebuke, you shall rebuke. Rebuke, you shall rebuke. What's it coming to teach us? You should do it again and again. Do it a few times. How many times should you do it? Well, the commentaries tell us you should do it to a degree that the person will hit you in the face, basically, after you've criticized him. It's to such a degree that it got to him that he became so angry with the rebuke that he hit the other person in the face. But if he didn't yet hit the person in the face, we should still continue to rebuke him. We shouldn't yet hate him. We don't know. That rebuke might have a good effect. But if the person, of course, comes and he strikes the person who's rebuking, then we know we've reached the end point, and then it becomes a mitzvah to hate him. Im she'itcha b'Torah uva mitzvahs. To the person who is with you in Torah and mitzvahs. That's why it is es amisecha. What does it mean? Amitecha. It means with teitcha. The person who is with you in Torah and mitzvahs, that is the person who we can come. That is the person who we need to rebuke. We're rebuking only a person who is on the same type of level as we are. You see, it doesn't really help much to rebuke a person who is not on the level that we are, especially if we are growing strongly in our Yiddishkeit. And this person, he can barely read Hebrew. He doesn't even know what is Shabbos. Unfortunately, doesn't know what is Kashrut. And we're going to go up to him and shout at him and scream at him because he's not observing the mitzvahs. This, of course, cannot be done because the person, he cannot understand what we're talking about. Any Baal Teshuvah knows that there was a time in their lives that they were totally oblivious to what mitzvahs were all about. Even if somebody said, keep Shabbos, they said, oh, that's for people who are frum. We don't keep Shabbos. I come from a background where we know nothing about Yiddishkeit. If those people want to observe Shabbos, let them. And they don't understand what is Shabbos. Anyway, years later, the person finds out what's Shabbos, what's Kashrut, what are the laws of family purity, tzedakah, tefillin, Pesach, all the mitzvahs. And suddenly he becomes inspired and he wants to fulfill them. He can go back in time in his mind and he realizes that he was there also. And when a person is in that stage of his life, so if somebody comes up to him and begins to rebuke him, it has no effect because we're talking to the wrong person. Somebody is rebuking the person who knows nothing about Torah. He's not going to win this battle. This person doesn't know what he's talking about. You're talking to the wrong fellow. Even so, lo shav mechito. This person has not yet done teshuvah from his sin. So in other words, that's who we're talking about. We're rebuking this person, the person who is together with us in Torah and mitzvahs, and nevertheless, the person refuses to do teshuvah. Kamo shekasav b'sefer charedim, as it's brought in the sefer charedim. Aval, but mi she'eino chaveiro, a person who is not his friend, and he is not close to him. Now, this person, he wants to come and rebuke him. He's not his friend. He's a person he happens to see in shul. He goes to shul one day. He sees this fellow. He's behaving in a very bad manner in the shul, and he wants to go and rebuke him. He knows nothing about the fellow. He just wants to rebuke him. He sees he doesn't look good. He does the way he's behaving is terrible. He gets up. He wants to rebuke and shout at him. So, if this person is not his friend and he's not close to him, because trying to rebuke somebody who's not close to one, again, will meet with no success. On this, Hillel the elder said in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, chapter 1, Heve mitalmidav shel Aaron, the same Hillel who was talking to the converts and he was going to teach him, and he did. He taught him the entire Torah while standing on one foot, which is basically loving another person as one loves oneself, or what is hateful to you, don't do to others. He is the same great man who tells us, be of the students of Aharon. Remember, Hillel is soft. He's soft in his nature. He's filled with chesed, kindness. So Hillel says, be of the students of Aharon. How do we do that? Ohev shalom, love peace, love peace. Anybody who wants to meditate, I don't know what to meditate on, just sit down, close your eyes, and just say, shalom, peace. Say, Ohev Shalom, love, peace. Do it for about half an hour. Do it for an hour, every single day. Ohev Shalom, Ohev Shalom. If a person does that every single day for an hour, rest assured, it will make a great impact on a person until he eventually internalizes the idea, you know what's important in life? Ohev Shalom, loving peace. Ohev es habrios, another person, or you want to do a meditation the next day because you're tired of Ohev Shalom already, here's the next meditation. Ohev et habriot, love mankind, love people. Interesting. He doesn't say Ohev et haYehudim or something like that, love Jews. He doesn't say that. He says Ohev et habriot. What is the word briot? Bria. If anybody who knows Hebrew knows that the word bria is a creature, even like an ant. An ant is a bria. It's a creature. Hillel HaZaken is teaching us love briot, love humankind, mankind, even if all you can see in them is that they are no greater than a creature. Again, we're talking about a person who is not on our standing. We're talking about the average person who is not growing in Torah, very simple people. They haven't been taught. Maybe they don't even know how to read the Aleph Beis. People are like that in our generation. And our duty is to bring them up. If we rebuke them, we're not going to succeed. So the Alter Rebbe is teaching us over here the keys that we need to succeed. This is key number 2, loving peace. Any discussion that we're going to get into with any person, the first thought that we have to have on our mind is this conversation going to bring us closer to the point of peace, or will it bring us to war? If it's going to bring to war and you know it, it's best to avoid it. Stop the discussion before it starts. Instead, we want to love peace. That is the goal. And what else do we need to do? And Hillel, of course, is the prime example. He knew all about it. You know the story of somebody who came to disrupt Hillel's preparation for Erev Shabbos, and he went to the bathhouse. And when he went to the bathhouse, this madman made a bet with his friend that he could make Hillel angry. And he came with all sorts of questions that he asked Hillel. Why are the people in such and such a country, why do they have big feet? And Hillel answered, this is because, you know, they need the feet, whatever, to walk, and this is how they have the big feet, etc. In the place that they live, they need big feet. And then he said, oh, thanks so much, Hillel, for telling me. And Hillel went back to his bath, and he came back again another half an hour later, and 20 minutes later, Hillel is still in the bath. He calls out, Hillel, is Hillel over here? Hillel gets out, yes, my son, you know, what can I do for you? He says, why do people in such and such a country have thin eyes? That was one of his questions. He explained, this is what happened, etc. And he says, well, that's fantastic, thanks so much. And he leaves. And he asks Hillel a barrage of questions, but Hillel is calm. Hillel is relaxed. And at that point in time, this particular individual, he becomes so overwhelmed, he begins shouting because he lost his wage, he lost his bet to the fellow. He wasn't able to make Hillel angry. And afterwards, when he was screaming and shouting about it, Hillel asked him, what are you so upset about? He says, because I lost this bet. I was going to make you angry, but I see I can't make you angry. And Hillel, of course, says, well, it's better that you lose bet after bet after bet, so to speak, than that you should make Hillel angry. Hillel is a lover of peace. Hillel loves people, and wherever he finds himself, he wants to do whatever he can to help other people. Amazingly enough, the story of Hillel in this particular instance that I'm bringing down is a typical example you can imagine of a rabbi who's very, very busy during the day. And we pick up the phone and we give him a call. Rabbi, I'm not sure. When I put something on the pot and I'm not sure, did I make the pot treif now? Is it still kasher? And then the rabbi answers. 10 minutes later, we give him another call. Rabbi, I went to the store. I want to know if this product is kosher or not. Can I eat it? The rabbi answers. 10 minutes later, you call the rabbi again. Rabbi, what blessing should I make on this food? The rabbi already is, please leave me alone. You know, I'm busy. I've got important things to do over here. If you need help, go and ask somebody else your simple questions. When you've got a big question, you can ask me, the rabbi says. But Hillel was the ultimate rabbi. And he said, if somebody has come to me and needs my assistance, I'm going to do the best that I can. I will not get angry. Why? Because I believe in the approach of chesed, kindness, which is an approach of ohev shalom, loving peace, ohev et habriot, loving humankind, umekarvan Torah. And my duty is to bring people close to Torah. My duty is not to push them away from Torah. If I'm going to rebuke them constantly, you can rest assured they're going to run miles from the study of Torah, especially when they see that we ourselves are pushing against them some of the hard laws of the Torah, and it becomes unpleasant for them and they run away. Hillel says, bring them close to Torah. So Hillel is teaching us a very beautiful approach of love. Loimar, to say, even those who are far from the Torah of Hashem and its service, they're not so involved in studying Torah, and they're not involved in serving God. They're not doing the mitzvahs. And therefore, says the Alter Rebbe, they are called by the name of briot, which loosely translated does not mean just humankind or people. It means creatures in a general sense. So these people are creatures. Call them ants if you want. Call them worms. I don't know, whatever you want to call them. Call them creatures. So even if they're on the lowest of the lowest of the lowest level that one can imagine, the duty that we have is not the rebuke. The duty that we have is the ohev shalom. Ohev et habriot umekarvan leTorah. Tzarich lemoshchan bechevlei avotot ahava. We have to bring them close. We have to draw them close with strong ropes of love. We have to draw them close to us. Take the rope. like we're playing, like a person is, let's say, I was thinking of doing a tug of war over here, where we have the rope tied around ourselves, and we're pulling the other team across. We want to win. How do we win? We win by pulling them across the line. Well, with the same type of idea, if you imagine somebody maybe has fallen into a pit, and we need to get them out of the pit. We tie a rope around ourselves to make sure that we're nice and strong, we're balanced. We then put the rope down to the well, and we throw it down to them. They tie it around themselves, and we begin to pull them up with the strong rope, in the hope that we're going to pull them up okay out of this well, and all be well. They'll be safe. Everything is okay. The idea is to draw the fellow close to ourselves, close to the Torah, through using strong ropes. Strong ropes. And all of this. And maybe we will be able to draw them close to the Torah, and to the service of God. So maybe if we can get our act together, and we can appreciate what it means to love peace and to love them, and then to draw them close through these kindness, the kind speech, the kind actions, perhaps we'll be able to bring them close to the Torah and service of Hashem, which is our goal. The goal is we need to work as one in serving Hashem. We need to be one unit. God wants us to observe all 613 mitzvahs together as a unit. We're functioning as a body. The body needs everything to work correctly. We are not separated. The kidneys and the lungs and the liver and the heart and everything of the body all needs each other to function correctly in a healthy manner. We need to look after all the parts of our body with the same love and care. We cannot simply discard parts of the body or behave irresponsibly, but we need to work together. As a body, we need to function together. The Jewish people need to function together. We need to all keep all 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. That's our duty. When we're not doing so, and there's something lacking, it's as if to say, well, we've just pushed aside at this point in time the liver. We've pushed aside at this point in time the lungs. We pushed aside the kidneys. We pushed aside the heart. Meanwhile, while the rest of us go on doing what we have to do, the heart has been kept aside, or the heart believes it doesn't have to take care and observe all 613 mitzvahs. So we say the following: we need all the Jewish people on our team. We are one team. We need to connect with each other. We need to allow others to take part in the show that's going on. The show is the observance of the mitzvahs. V'hein law. Now, what happens at the end of the day if we're not successful? We tried very hard to bring the peace. We tried very hard to bring them over to the side of observing the mitzvahs. We want to take care of them. We want to love them. And guess what? They don't want it. Doesn't matter how hard we try. Perhaps you might have met such a person. We try hard. Please come over for Shabbos. Come on, come over. Come over for a meal during the week. You don't have to come only on Shabbos. We've got a meal for you even during the week. Even breakfast. Come through for breakfast. We have something for you. And lunch and supper also. Whatever it is, come through. We'd like to help you. And every time you say it, we push you aside, no matter what it is that you offer. You need some help. Yeah, here's $100. Let me help you. No, I don't want it. You try your hardest. Every time you say, can I help you? Can I do something? Keep on pushing them aside. What are we going to say about such an individual? He keeps pushing us aside. But nevertheless, if indeed a person is continued in this way, he will not have lost out on the rewards of the mitzvah of loving other people. There's a mitzvah to love other people. Love your fellow Jew, which means if I've tried honestly to love him, even though he is not accepting of the love that I'm giving him, nevertheless, I do not lose out on my good deed. Whereas if I rebuke him and I'm not doing it properly, what's going to happen? Ultimately, he'll hate me, then I'll hate him. Everybody will hate each other. And ultimately, nobody's going to fulfill mitzvahs. We're all going to be engaged in severe averot, severe sins, because we're going to be hating each other and talking badly about each other. But love the fellow, even if he doesn't reciprocate. There's one thing I can say about myself. I will have taken care of the mitzvah of loving another. Sounds pretty good. V'kam, also, hamakoravim elav, those who are close to him. V'ochikam, and he rebukes them. V'lo shavu me'avonosehim, and yet they do not return from their sinful behavior. Shemitzvah l'sanasam, it's a mitzvah to hate them. Guess what? Mitzvah le'ohavam gam kain. There is a mitzvah also to love them. So you say there's a mitzvah to hate them. The Alter Rebbe says true, but there's also a mitzvah to love them. If it says in the Torah, and you shall hate this person because he didn't accept the rebuke, and he's not listening, it says hate him. Yeah, but it also says v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. It is also a mitzvah to love your fellow man. So you've got two mitzvahs. You might have a mitzvah to hate him. You also have a mitzvah to love him. And both of them are true. Sinna, hatred, mitzad harashi bahim. Hatred comes from the bad inside them. Hate the bad that one sees in the other. The ahava and the love, mitzad bechinas hatov haganuz shebahim. The love comes in the aspect of the good which is hidden in them. When we want to know how to work the system, how to operate the midot refers to one's attributes. It also refers to the idea of a measure. For example, if I speak about a particular food and I say the food is sweet, I can say on a scale of 1 to 10, this food is a 9, this food is a 5, this food is bitter, it goes on to 3. So there's a scale that's going on here. Meaning what? When I look at the person, there is also an aspect of bad in the person and also an aspect of good, which means to say I need to hate the evil that I see in the other. I must hate it outright. It's a terrible thing. This person is behaving in a terrible way. He speaks the most filthy lashon hara about other people. Terrible things he says. Hurtful things he says to people. Hurtful things about people. All sorts of things this person is involved in. I hate it. But on the other hand, he's also a godly person. Within him is a godly spark. And that part I love. So I'm cleaving to the love that I want for this person. And I'm also shunning or cleaving, depending on how we look at the angle of it, the hatred, the evil that I see in the person. Now, this particular spark that we're speaking about, the good inside them, is a godly spark, which is inside them. It gives life to their godly soul. And what should we do? If we see that this person is not behaving correctly, we need to have mercy on his belibo. A person should have mercy in his heart for the godly spark that one sees in exile in this person. You see, this idea, what we have here is a terrible situation. This person has a godly spark inside him. However, he ignores it, and instead he pursues his life of evil. He continues to speak filthy lashon hara. He continues to break the Sabbath day. He continues to refuse to give charity to other people. These are terrible things. Fine. Granted, that is a sign that the godly spark inside is in an even greater exile within him. I want that godly spark to come out because I know it's there. And yet everything I see with this person is the negativity and the evil that comes through. It's an aspect of exile. Inside the bad, misitra akra, from the other side, which increases itself in the wicked people. The wicked people, they don't stand a chance because the evil sitra akra is on the ascent with them all the time, continually driving them to do more and more bad. The tzaddik continually drives on to be greater, to be better, to be more good in everything that he can. The evil person has a taskmaster called the Sitra Akra. The taskmaster is constantly whipping this person to get on with the evil that he needs to do. Constantly whipping him. Get on with it. The evil taskmaster says, you have lots of evil to achieve. The person says, yes, definitely. I have lots of evil to do. But the tzaddik doesn't say that. What is going on? This person has a problem that the godly spark has been exiled within him. He can't seem to access it, can't seem to locate it, can't seem to get it out. What can I do? I should have mercy. I have mercy on the godly spark that's sitting inside him and just can't get out. It's an aspect of galus in the sitra akra, which is increasing in the rishayim. Now the mercy that the person has, it annuls, it cancels off the hatred that the person now has. And it awakens the love. How are we dealing with this? The whole psychological thing going on here. The psychology of it is, I see this person is doing some bad stuff, but my duty is to do the best I can to bring him on the side of love. But he's not listening. So what do? All I can do is have mercy upon him. I have mercy upon the fact that I know that within him is a godly spark. As is brought down in many sources in Chassidut, that the idea that we're speaking about is like a person who sleeps. Now, if a person is sleeping, it could be, for example, as we've said in these discussions before in the shiurim, perhaps he's a heart surgeon. But when he's sleeping, nobody picks up he's a heart surgeon. He could be the collector for the rubbish. We don't know what he does with his life because he's asleep. But when he wakes up, suddenly all the powers of his soul awaken, and we suddenly realize he's a heart surgeon. He can give life to a person who's in the process of dying because there's something wrong with his heart. He can change this person's life for the good because he has at his fingertips all the tools necessary to put into practice according to science, not according to God. Of course, God is in charge. God will give life to the person, but we have to do the physical effort in order to make sure that God can come through to do what is necessary. If the heart has really broken down, and this scientist understands, the doctor understands how to put another heart into this person to bring him to life, it is not him who's bringing to life, but he is using the physical vessel to assist God, so to speak, in the physical world to keep this person alive. He's a great man, but if he's sleeping, nobody will pick it up. He could be a garbage collector. Maybe he's a plumber. Maybe he's an electrician. Well, I have no idea until he wakes up. So too, every single Jew has a godly spark inside them as well. But if a person is fixed on the evil deeds that he's going to do, it's like a person who's in a state of sleep. The godly spark is sleeping. And therefore, what must I do? I have to have mercy on him. I wish he would wake up already. And you have mercy on him. Doctor, wake up. The doctor is sleeping. He's going to sleep his whole life away. He spent 15 years involved in study, another 5 years involved in work, and now he sleeps all day. Doctor, wake up. You're a doctor. You've got things to do. You can save lives. So too we say to this person, wake up. There's a godly soul inside you. Therefore, I have mercy on him. I wish he would wake up out of his sleep and realize that there's a godliness in him, and he has to do away with the evil that's bringing him down. As we know from what's written, to Jacob, who redeemed Abraham. Jacob redeemed Abraham. How did Jacob redeem Abraham? Jacob is the aspect of mercy. Abraham is the aspect of kindness. And what happened is Yaakov, he's the aspect of mercy, comes along and redeems the aspect of chesed. We're using the aspect of mercy to redeem this aspect of chesed on the other person. And David HaMelech, may peace be upon him, did not say the following, Tehillim Kuf Lamed Tet Chaf Beis, Takli Sinnes Neisim. David HaMelech, King David says, I hate the evil people with an absolute, complete hatred. What did King David mean when he said the statement? He did not say it in the usual sense that we think about when we speak about hating these evil people. But what is he talking about? Ela, but rather, King David was speaking al haminim, upon heretics, va'epikurosim, and atheists. These people have no portion in the God of Israel. And so he was saying, I hate these people who, it's not just that they are, in a general sense, negative, evil, they don't do what they should, but they have completely turned themselves off 180 degrees to everything of what it means to be a Jew. These were the people that King David hated with a complete hatred. As is brought down here in the Gemara, let us not forget, of course, in our generation, we live in interesting times, as they say, and we refer to today's times that people are what's called a tinok shenishba, a child that is held captive. This is not necessarily in any way to be associated with these heretics and these epikurosim, these atheists, etc. Today's times we find many Jews, unfortunately, who are very distant from Torah. And the reason that they're distant is because they have been brought up in an environment that has kept them away from Torah, and they don't know what the Torah is. Just like a child who might be a prince and he has been held captive by some very evil people, and they bring him up in a certain place to make him think that he is one of them. That's what he thinks about himself. He is merely a child who's been held captive, but the reality is he's still a prince. If we can only get him back to his father, he'll realize he's a prince. We'll get him back on track and he'll be okay. This is, for the most part, the type of generation that we're in today, and we have been in for some time already, whereby many, many Jews have been brought up in a sense where they don't know what it means to be Jewish, and they certainly don't fit, even if they say that they don't believe in God. This is not necessarily 100% true. They are not the category that we're speaking about here. These are people, today's times, who just simply don't know what it means to be a Jew. They don't know what it means to study Torah. They don't know what it means to observe mitzvahs. And therefore, in conclusion, if we understand this chapter well enough, or at least if we've understood it correctly, our duty is to go out towards them and to assist them and bring them close to Torah, not to rebuke them, but to have that love for them. And if it doesn't work, we have lost out on nothing. All we have lost out on is being kind and caring towards another person. If any person has the choice and they're thinking about it, they've got a big shaila to ask the Rav. The big shaila, big question is, Rabbi, I see this person, I'm not happy with the evil he's doing. Should I hate him and do evil back, God forbid? Or should I love him and just say, well, that is where he's at? The answer is, put out the love. This is chapter love, Leiv, that we're speaking about. Our mission is to care for the other in the best possible way, and hopefully through this love that we reach out to the other, they in turn will return back to where they should be. Thank you very much for joining me. We've reached the end, and we reached the end of chapter 32. We've reached the end of the shiur. Thanks for joining me. If you have enjoyed this shiur, as always I say, please do me a favor and like the shiur by clicking on the thumbs up button below the video. And please feel free to make a comment, click on the bell button to be notified of future shiurim. And if you haven't done so already, do subscribe to my channel by clicking on the subscribe button and helping me to grow my channel and reaching out to more people. Watch these videos. It gives me credit in that I am aware that people are watching, and it is growing the channel. So you're doing me a great favor. Those of you who have subscribed already, I thank you very much. If you wish to be in touch with me directly, feel free to send me an email to go to my website. I'm Eliyahu Sher from Chesed Ve'emet. My site is www.lovingkindness.co. If you go to my site, you can send me a message through the contact form, and I'd be only too happy to read it and be in touch with you about anything, areas of life, Torah, growth, whatever we're speaking about in these shiurim. Let's discuss it more. If you'd like to learn one-on-one, let me know what you'd be interested in learning. We can get together, bring your coffee and biscuits and cake. Let's have a good time studying some Torah and just feeling good about everything that we're doing. If you're able to, please do come to the site and become a member of Chesed Ve'emet by offering a small donation to us each month and allowing us and helping us to continue in the work that we're doing, being able to offer more shiurim, being able to take the time to edit our shiurim and provide the videos as they are available on the channel, and of course to simply reach out to people. We spend time answering questions, and it all takes time. We love doing it, and we really want to reach out to people. Those people who help us allow us to help these people more as well. So I thank you. For those of you who do take part, you're really making a difference, and if you're not taking part yet, feel free to come on board and help us. I look forward to another shiur in the near future and to being in touch with you in the near future. I wish you everything of the best. Take care. Shalom, shalom. Bye-bye.